Welcome to Point Blank, brought to you by Fitz Roofing. I'm Brandon Stranger, Sports Map Houston. That's Joel Blank. You can catch him on the Killer Bees weekdays from noon to 3 on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Hit like on this video. Comment below so we know what you guys are talking about. Click that bell for notifications. We really do appreciate all the support. Hey, what's up, Joel?
What's up, man?
Mercifully, there was no game this past Sunday for the Texans, so we didn't have to break that down. But David Culley's media presser this week was a good reminder that so much of what ails the Texans definitely includes the coaching. I heard you talking about it this week on your show as well, so I wanted to get into it with you. He kept referring to the turnovers and the penalties and said that they just needed to get that stuff cleaned up. And that seems to ignore the gigantic elephant in the room, which is an impotent offense that hasn't scored a touchdown on the road since week 2. Should Coach Culley's comments throw up any red flags that would indicate that maybe he doesn't really understand what the real problems are with this team?
I think it's a combination of sorts, Brandon. I think that you can look at it that way and say, come on, coach, seriously, if the sky is blue and you're telling me it's purple, you're not giving me any backup to think that I should change my mind. But more so than that, it seems to be that he's a puppet. It seems to be that someone in the PR department, because there's been disconnects in the past between him and Caserio and the messages sent, and then they have to correct it within 24 hours. Someone handed him a note card and said, today the focus, coach, is going to be turnovers and penalties. Stick to the message. And that's what he tried to do. But all he's doing is losing more and more credibility with his audience, his fan base, the media, and everybody that watches this team continually play after play, game after game. Because whether the roster is fortified with guys that are going to be here next year and beyond or not doesn't matter. As you said, the fact that the offense isn't tailor-made for either guy, whether it be Tyrod Taylor or Davis Mills, the plays that they're running and the ways that they're not managing the clock and managing their timeouts and calling stupid fake punts and all the other things that they're doing is just more reflective of not only the fact that you got a bridge coach, but you got a coach that just is way in over his head. He had never been a coordinator or a head coach in this league, and it's showing.
But is the job he's doing, or maybe the lack thereof, could that mean that maybe he's going to be a one-and-done coach?
I don't know that they'll go one and done, Brandon, because I think until they get the right roster put together to where they can start progressing from the basement, there's no real sense of urgency to get a true football coach with experience that can take them somewhere because they're not going anywhere. I don't think that they need someone else to drive that bus. Plus, it's extra expense. He signed a contract. You still have to pay him. I still believe the Texans do have some kind of focus on that. Maybe not as much as Tillman and the Rockets, but I wouldn't be quick to make a change just yet because until they start constructing a real roster of NFL talent, I don't think that they're in need of a coach that actually has a firm grasp on what it is to be the CEO of a football team in the NFL.
There was some talk before the season about who could be a coach here, who could be the next head coach here. And I wanted to talk more about that because I think it's more relevant now than ever. But before we get into that conversation, give me a word from Fitz Roofing.
Yeah, we love the people at Fitz Roofing, primarily because they're dedicated to the people of Houston, and that means they do free, no-obligation inspections that cost you absolutely nothing. It just tells you what they can do to help. All you do is call them, 832-521-3001. They come to you. They tell you what they can do. From a leaky roof for your business or your home to a whole new roof on either building to maybe just some home repairs or a fence in your yard, they take care of you every step of the way. It's Fitz Roofing making a difference one home at a time.
I think what's interesting is Davis Mills, we saw him for a few weeks and we knew he was a project, but when you contrast that with the development of a guy like Mac Jones, I find that especially interesting because during the Texans coaching search, we heard Josh McDaniels' name be brought up and he was supposedly in the mix. A lot of Texans fans groaned because here's another Patriots guy. Oh, here we are, Patriot South again. But at this point, Joel, who would you rather have?
Well, I think for sure, simply because of the fact that if you're going to go to the Belichick tree, rather than a guy that's inexperienced like Nick Caserio and elevating him, you take a guy that's had all the experience of being a coordinator for a long period of time in the actual foxhole with Bill Belichick on the field, like Josh McDaniels. And I'm not so sure, Brandon, that especially with the turnaround the Patriots have had, that he is not going to be the coach in waiting for Bill Belichick someday. And he realizes, unlike the other Belichick coaching tree disciples that have failed miserably when they got out of Foxborough, he's basically set his sails on, they're paying me well enough to stay. And when Big Bill wants to leave, I'm going to take over and I'm going to be in a good spot. I would definitely rather have a guy that has all that kind of experience, and coordinator experience especially means something, as opposed to David Culley, fresh, raw, older, and having no grasp on any of the concepts it takes to be someone with the headset on a Sunday.
Joel, do you think that a guy like Josh McDaniels would even be interested in coming here? I know the state of the team, but there are some people here that he does have ties with, namely Nick Caserio and Jack Easterby.
Yeah, I think one is a positive and one I think, Brandon, would be a negative, and I think you guys can figure that out pretty quickly. I think that Nick Caserio, because he was let into the inner circle of Bill Belichick and was so close and tight with those decision makers in Foxborough, that Josh McDaniels would welcome the opportunity to work with him again. I think from the standpoint of Jack Easterby, and I would have that as one of my conversations if they were interested in me and say, look, if you're interested in me, then you can't be interested in Jack Easterby anymore. If you want him to run the sermon on Sunday morning and you want him to hand out note cards in the locker room after games with positive reinforcement, that I'll allow. But if you want him to dictate anything that I do or be involved in any decisions that I make, then this probably isn't the job for me, because Jack Easterby is a negative across the league. And as much as Cal refuses to admit it, everyone else in the league, from the media to the actual people in the inner circles of teams, know that he is a guy that they want to stay away from.